Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sarah. I am one half of the Carwells, and today we are going to be answering a ton of investment questions around short-term rentals and Airbnb that you guys submitted. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our channel. That helps us out a lot. And without further ado, let's get into it. It depends on what your strategy is. For me personally, I like a renovation project to a certain degree, not a complete gut, but somewhere in the middle because you get to add a lot of equity to the house on the front end. It's a more secure investment. But us at Superhost Labs, when we're looking at investments, we like investments that require less upfront work than a fix and flip would because we get to turn it over faster and start making money on it faster. I talk about this all the time, but I always say mid-tier markets. If you start getting involved in the short-term rental space, you'll see people talk all the time about Gatlinburg or Joshua Tree or Nashville or any large metroplex, and all of those do make money, but that also comes with a ton of competition. So if you're a new investor, I always suggest targeting mid-tier markets. And what I mean by that is typically instead of looking at maybe national parks, you look at state parks, or instead of looking at oceanfront properties, you look at inland lakes where there's a lot less competition and it allows you a lot more room to excel around your competitors instead of walking into the most competitive markets. Personally, for one, I like real estate more. There's more utility behind real estate, especially with short-term rentals. When you have a short-term rental, you can actually stay in that property when you own it, so it has a vacation or a lifestyle component to it. Also, if we saw a world where a certain stock went to zero, that's not uncommon, whereas if we saw a world where a piece of real estate went to $0, that's terrifying. So although real estate may take a little bit more work to get up and running and also is a lot less liquid than stocks or crypto, in my opinion, it's more secure. Cash flow. In the past, when you were looking at being a landlord or a property manager of sorts, you were looking at bringing one family or one person into your property who was going to stay for an entire year, and the cash flow on those varied from maybe $200 cash flow a month to $500 cash flow a month. Whereas when you're looking at short-term rentals, you're 4 or 5xing that in cash flow per month. So even though it does cost more to start up because you have to furnish it and you have to manage it and there's a lot more turnover, the cash flow that comes with that is exponentially higher. So that's why you see a lot of long-term renters or long-term landlords switching to short-term rentals. You can invest with us. We have a $25,000 minimum investment though, so that might not always be the best case scenario. But you can also look at co-hosting, which means you are helping another landlord host their property. It allows you to dip your toes into the Airbnb space without owning property. Or you can look at Airbnb arbitrage, which means you are looking at a property that somebody else owns, you are renting it from them, assuming they've given you approval, and then you are re-renting it on Airbnb after you furnish it. The million-dollar question right now. We have looked at the last several recessions, and out of the last several, 2 out of I think the last 10, you've seen a dip in real estate overall. I know that 2008 is still in our current lifetime, and that's why a lot of people are looking at it, but over the span of time, real estate usually does really well in a recession and it comes out the other side a lot stronger. So what I've been telling people is you want to make sure you have reserves right now. You want to make sure that you are able to withstand maybe a 6 to 10 month period of famine where people aren't going to be traveling as much, but as long as you can hold on to that real estate, I'm hopeful that it will come out the other side even stronger. Personally, I think it's going to be a unique experience. Airbnb is definitely leaning in that direction, and single family homes, although a more secure investment and also an easier investment to offload in the long run, unique stays is definitely where Airbnb is pushing their niche. And so if you want to make higher cash flow and maybe a more risky investment, I would lean towards unique stays over single family homes. This is all new, right? Turnkey properties for Airbnb is not something that's common like buying a turnkey property for a full-time home. Right now it happens in Facebook groups where you see people offloading certain properties so that they can buy larger properties or multifamily properties. Some of them are great deals and some of them aren't great deals. But if you are looking at buying a turnkey short-term rental, you have to accept the fact that you're not going to be making money as quickly as if you were flipping that property on your own. With that being said, if you don't have time or energy or resources to flip that property on your own, buying a turnkey short-term rental that doesn't profit as quickly but still profits is a great solution. So understanding how to analyze analyze it, making sure that the numbers check out, making sure that your expectations are set properly on the front end is great. As long as you understand those things, then I would say go for it. Diversifying your portfolio is important and one of our key selling points at Superhost Labs when you're investing with us, because Airbnbs experience extreme seasonality. Not in all locations, but in most locations, you've either got high seasons or low seasons because of winter, fall, attractions, things like that. So if you're investing in a diversified portfolio, whether that portfolio is all yours or you're sharing it with other people, then you don't have those highs and lows of seasonality. One, make sure you know how to analyze the property. With Superhost Labs proprietary technology, we analyze or underwrite thousands of properties per day. And with underwriting so many properties, we found that 94% of properties are not good Airbnb deals. They return, or they have a projected return of less than 10% cash on cash. And so with that being said, if you don't know how to analyze properties properly on the front end, then you are in for a rude awakening on the back end. Understanding how to analyze those properties is definitely the most important step when looking at investing in new Airbnb. With that comes the art on the backside. So if you know how to analyze an Airbnb deal properly and you found one that pencils well, you have to know how to furnish it and compete with your competitors in your market so it does perform to match the projections that you had. Creative financing. Both my husband and I are 1099. Both of us have our own businesses, and so we go through this process a lot. If you find a lender who specializes in investors or even short-term rentals in general, they can be a huge help to you. What we look at most often are DSCR loans and investment loans that look at your 1099 or your bank account. Otherwise, you can look at creative investment options where you do seller financing, or you could try and partner with an investor who has a W-2 job where you can leverage their income to invest in a property that you put a lot of sweat equity into. If you're investing with other people, it can be a great way to get started, especially if you don't have a ton of capital up front or maybe a ton of know-how. What I would say is make sure you get everything on paper ahead of time. The people that I have worked with closely in the past who have gone into large partnerships with 6 or 7 people, they used a DSCR loan. They divided up per both time and amount of money that they are investing in the property. And I would say that don't shy away from investing with other people, especially if it'll allow you to get into the real estate space sooner. You have other people to lean on, and it's not going to be your first deal likely, so I would say go ahead first and make it work. First and foremost, when you're analyzing properties, you want to make sure that the area that you're looking at investing in is an area where Airbnb is legal. The regulations are changing all the time. So personally, I like looking at more remote locations because there's less chatter in the market around Airbnb. But you want to make sure that the legalities are in your favor, that you are running a legal operation, and also, even if it is a legal operation and you know that you're allowed to be there and continue running, I always tell people to take your neighbors on head first. You as a host understand all of their anxieties around having an Airbnb next door, and you also know how you personally are mitigating those risks, whether it be with Ring cameras, offering a quality experience, having noise monitoring systems, whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that you are making your neighbor feel prioritized so that your experience across the board is great, both for you and your neighbor. Well, I would say check out our YouTube video where we go over how to analyze deals. And personally, I am not a numbers person either. I've said it many times on social media that Emily and I have always been the art side of things and not the math side of things. And the math side really intimidated me. But if you get an analysis tool that's pre-made, most Airbnb influencers will sell one. If you get those tools, it really is a plug and play. It becomes very easy to analyze properties. It's not as cumbersome as you might think. If you're not a math person, I would say make sure that you at least know how to do that analysis. It's not super difficult, and once you learn once, you know how to do it going forward.